Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Sharan from Department of Prosthodontics. In the previous e-learning session, we have discussed about dental polymers, polymerization reactions, and chemical stages of polymers or chemistry of polymerization, and in detail about properties of the polymers, including glass transition temperatures, solvation properties and everything. Now we are going to the in-depth about your denture based resins. What is a denture base? A little history back. This history actually we discussed earlier in the polymer part only, but again once again I will go through once, and some ideal requirements of the denture base, then separately heat cured, self cured and recent advances, right? As usual, contents includes introduction, history, ideal requirements, classification, properties, heat cure resins, self cure resins, light process resins, recent advances, processing defects, everything, right? Introduction, there is no need special introduction for this because I have been discussed a lot introduction part in the previous e-learning sessions. Now I directly jump into the actual content. History, as usually as I discussed in the where in the polymers part, history I have been discussed, right? Which has been first revolutionized this replacement part. First it is vulcanite rubbers, right? These are the rubber dentures. Then actual introduction of acrylic resins was given by Walter Wright. In the previous they have been used gold teeth, silver teeth and different forms of the teeth they have been used, right? Now what is actually a denture base means? Denture base means that it's a part of a denture that rests on the foundation tissues and to which teeth are attached. This is the part where it rests on the tissues and to which teeth are attached. Resin means it is a broad term used to describe natural or synthetic substances that form plastic materials after polymerization, right? Now there are different classification, but actually there are two important classifications which I kept here. If you write these two, it's enough, right? According to ISO 1567, International Standard Organizations, the main classification they have been divided into 5 types. Type 1 goes into again class 1 and class 2. Class 1 is heat processing polymers with powder and liquid as composition, and in class 2 heat process but will available in the plastic cake forms. Type 2 is autopolymerized polymers with powder and liquid, and class 2 autopolymerized polymers, but it may also include liquid pore type of resins. Type 3 is thermoplastic blanks or cakes or powders. Type 4 is light activated, and type 5 is microwave. This classification is given in the applied dental materials textbook, right? It is not given in your Philips, but some examiners might expect this classification also. But general classification which is given in your Philips textbook or in your Vannapalli is, it is based on the usage. They are classified into temporary denture based resins and permanent denture based resins. Examples for temporary denture based resins include self cure acrylics, base plate waxes, shellac base plate, etc. Example for permanent denture based resins include heat cured resins, light cured resins, pore type resins and metallic, right? Metallic is not temporary. And based on the activation, you already know light activated, chemically activated and heat activated resins. And based on the type of material used, it's a metallic or non-metallic. Non-metallic means it is acrylic type of resins. Metallic means we use generally cobalt chromium type of the metals, right? And nickel chromium also can be used. Gold also can be used in rare cases, right? Then what are the uses of these type of resins? They can be used as denture bases, they can be used as a acrylic teeth, right? They can be used in crown and bridge veneers, they can be used as dye materials, they can be used as a temporary process, they can be used as a oral and maxillofacial processes. They can be used as a mouth protectors. They can be used as in the orthodontics as a elastics. Right? Then, what are the ideal requirements of these denture-based materials? Right? Requirements. These requirements are purely according to your Phillips textbook. Right? If you go through your Phillips textbook, everything is present. Main, it should have some biocompatibility. It should be biocompatible. That means biological requirements are, it should be non-toxic, it should not cause any toxicity, and it should be non-irritant. And chemically, it should be inert, insoluble, and non-absorbent. Physical properties include, it should be aesthetically satisfactory, it should be dimensionally stable. That means it should have some dimensional stability. It should have low value of specific gravity or low density, and the softening temperature should be higher than the temperature of the liquids and food ingested. That means if what the denture base you are going to place in the patient's mouth, it should not melt. We will take different types of foods, beverages, etc. Into your oral cavity. If you take some hot foods, if the hot temperature of the food what we take melts these denture based resins, then what is the purpose of using the denture bases on the tissues? So whatever the denture base or whatever the resin you are using, it should not melt to the temperatures that we take along with the foods or beverages, right? And thermal conductivity should be high. Why thermal conductivity should be high? In order to maintain the healthy mucosa and to retain normal reaction to the hot and cold stimuli, and it should be radio opaque, right? Then coming to the mechanical properties, it should have high value of modulus of elasticity or elastic modulus. Why it should have high elastic modulus? High elastic modulus is because to have the great rigidity. Why it should have high value of thermal conductivity? It should because to maintain the healthy mucosa and to react normal reaction to the hot and cold stimuli, and high value of the elastic limit to prevent permanent deformation, and a combination of both above would allow the base to fabricate in the thin sections, right? And it should have sufficient abrasion resistance to prevent excessive wear, and it should have an adequate fatigue life and high fatigue limit, good impact strength, sufficient flexural strength in order to resist the fracture. Then what are the miscellaneous? It should be easy to clean, easy to repair, and easy to manipulate and fabricate, and relatively inexpensive, right? And some properties like hardness and abrasion resistance. Usually heat-cured acrylic resins will have 18 to 20 KHN. What is meant by KHN? Knoop hardness test, right? Similarly, for the self-cured resins, it should have 16 to 18, slightly less than your heat-cured resins, right? Then cross-linked polymethyl methacrylate is only slightly harder than the regular polymethyl methacrylate. Why cross-linked polymers will have more strength? Because the incorporation of fillers may alter resistance to abrasion, but the hardness of the plastic remains unchanged. I discussed about cross-linking in the previous lessons. You go back and cross-check the cross-linking, how the cross-linking will improve the physical properties of the resins or polymers. Then coming to fatigue strength and fracture toughness, right? This fatigue strength or fracture toughness of the acrylic polymers is discussed in detail, right? These acrylic polymers show sensitivity. Over stressing of these dentures on the flasking must be avoided, otherwise a small crack may be produced which will later propagate through the material. So these acrylic polymers are very sensitive, as you all know, how when you are manipulating your self-cured resins and everything. So whenever you are doing your some techniques called compression molding technique or injection molding technique during flasking procedures, this should be very technique sensitive. If you apply more amount of pressure, what will happen? It will lead to the crack propagation. So that is nothing but your fatigue strength and fracture toughness. Similarly, fatigue or midline fracture may occur if the mass gravitational forces are relatively larger, right? So fatigue strength increases with the high molecular weight and increases an increase in the plasticizer content. So in order to why you use cross linking is because of this, it increases the strength, hardness and your fatigue strength, right? Similarly, the upper surface of the denture must be smoothly polished, because in order to, why polishing is done, in order to prevent the food accumulation, right? Then about your polymerization shrinkage. This polymerization shrinkage, they will ask you in 2 marks question. Polymerization shrinkage of acrylic denture based resins. So this is the points which you have to write when it is given for the polymerization shrinkage. When methyl methacrylate monomer is polymerized to form polymethyl methacrylate, the density of the mass changes from 0.94 to 1.1 gram per centimeter cube. That is one change when polymerization shrinkage occurs. This change in the density results in all over the volumetric shrinkage of 21% when a conventional heat activated resin is mixed at suggested powder liquid ratio about 1/3 of the resultant mass, right? Consequently, the volumetric shrinkage exhibited by polymerized mass should be approximately 7%. And based on the projected volumetric shrinkage of 7%, the linear shrinkage exhibited should be 2%, but the absorbed shrinkage is less than 1%, right? Then similarly, solubility. The acrylic resins are virtually insoluble in fluids, which are commonly encountered in the oral cavity. In general, the solubility of resins is very, very low, right? Generally, when water molecules enter between your polymethyl methacrylate during your false flasking procedures, it produces two effects. One, it causes the slight expansion and it interferes with the entanglement of polymer chain, which acts as a plasticizer, right? Then about creep. You know what is meant by creep. So if this, when you apply the force, if it is not removed, additional plastic deformation may occur over time, right? This is nothing but your creep, right? This rate may be elevated by increasing in temperature or applied load, residual monomer and presence of plasticizer. So what amount of pressure should be applied, so everything we will discuss in later. These are some of the values of regarding to the properties. What is its modulus of velocity, what is its residual monomer, what content, what is its water solubility, what is its water sorption content, like that, right? Then coming to the in depth about your heat cured denture bases. These are used in fabrication of nearly all denture bases, because in daily life, if you are practicing dentistry, almost your heat cured denture based resins will be in your daily regular practice. This is the most common denture base which we generally use in our daily routine clinical practice, and the mode of activation is heat. Composition includes powder consists of polymethyl methacrylate. Remember, powder consists of polymethyl methacrylate, not methyl methacrylate. Powder consists of polymethyl methacrylate, benzoyl peroxide, which acts as an initiator, dibutyl naphthalate, which acts as a plasticizer, and compounds of mercuric sulfate and cadmium sulfate. Whereas liquid consists of non-polymerized methyl methacrylate, hydroquinone, which acts as inhibitor, and glycol dimethacrylate, which acts as cross-linking agent, and dibutyl naphthalate plasticizer. So plasticizer will be common both in powder and liquid. Remember, when you are writing your compositions, you have to mention specifically about the function of each ingredient. Just don't write dibutyl naphthalate, glycol dimethacrylate, polymethyl methacrylate. What is the function of polymethyl methacrylate? You write polymethyl methacrylate, keep it hyphen and write powder, or it's the main ingredient. If you write hydroquinone hyphen inhibitor, it should be written. That's gunshot. If you don't write the specific function of that ingredient, you don't get marks. You think you have written your composition, but they don't give you full marks. So you have to write specifically about function of the each ingredient. Then what is the polymer monomer ratio? The powder consists of pre-polymerized polymethyl methacrylate beads, which are commonly referred to as polymer. The liquid contains non-polymerized methyl methacrylate and therefore termed as monomer. Right? When the powder and liquid components are mixed in the proper proportions, a dough-like mass results. So accepted polymer monomer ratio is 3:1 by volume. Remember, when you are writing 3:1 as a ratio, we have to write 3:1 is by what? It's by weight or by volume? It's by volume. This provides sufficient monomer to thoroughly wet the polymer particles, but this ratio does not contribute excess monomer that would lead to the increased polymerization shrinkage. This all polymerization procedure we have discussed chemistry of polymerization. See, heat is an activator. Then it activates benzyl peroxide, which acts as an initiator. Then production of the free radical occurs. Then chemistry of polymerization takes place. See how the benzyl peroxide is releasing. So how polymer monomer interaction occurs? When monomer and polymer are mixed in the proper proportions, a workable mass is produced. Upon standing, the resultant mass produces 5 distinct stages. These 5 distinct stages are nothing but your physical stages of polymerization. Right? What are those physical stages? First one is sandy stage, stingy stage, dough-like stage, rubber or elastic stage, and stiff stage. Right? Sandy stage. What happens in the sandy stage or wet stage? In this, little or no interaction occurs on a molecular level. So when you immediately mix, what the stage is forming, it is wet stage or sandy stage. Then stringy stage. Polymer chains are dispersed in the liquid one. So some interaction is occurring. Polymer is getting mixed with your monomer, liquid monomer. Then next stage is your workable stage, that is dough stage. That is the mass behaves as a pliable dough. Then after this it rebounds, it compresses, that is your elastic stage. Right? Then last one is stiff stage, which resists to deformation. Right? Then what is the dough forming time? The time required for the resin mixture to reach a dough-like stage is termed as the dough forming time. So what do you mean by dough forming time? It is an important 2 marks question. The time required for the resin mixture to reach a dough-like stage. This is called as dough forming time. According to ANSI or ADA specification, it should be less than 40 minutes, but use up to 40 minutes. In clinical use or practical purposes, it is less than 10 minutes, because according to your temperature changes and everything. So when you do your flasking procedures, when you take a powder and liquid and mix thoroughly, what are the different stages are formed? These are the physical stages, whereas chemical stages are different: induction, propagation, chain transfer, chain termination, etc. Right? Working time may be defined as the time that a denture-based material remains in a dough-like stage. How much time it remains in the dough stage? It is almost about 5 minutes. Right? So in the next classes, we will discuss about techniques, compression molding technique, injection technique, everything. Right? You read once again requirements. If possible, we will discuss once again about the requirements. Okay? Thank you.